Hi, everyone. You are listening to Radio Cherry Bombe, and I'm your host, Kerry Diamond, coming to you from Newsstand Studios at Rockefeller Center in the heart of New York City. Some of you might have noticed I took a little hiatus. With everything going on in the world, I just needed a break. I'm sure many of you need a break right this very second, so I'm sending a big podcast hug to all of you. I'm very excited for the year to come here at Radio Cherry Bombe. The team and I have some amazing guests for you in the weeks ahead, and we are so grateful to have folks like you as our listeners. Speaking of hugs, today's guest is hugs personified. It's Brunch with Babs. Barbara Costello is the social media sensation known as the internet's favorite grandma. When the pandemic struck, Babs was a retired teacher with zero social media presence. She didn't even have a Facebook account. Her daughter convinced her to post something on TikTok, and here we are, millions of followers later. When she published that first TikTok video, Babs had thought her best days were behind her. Little did she know what was to come. Her second book, Every Day with Babs, 101 family-friendly dinners for every day of the week, will be out April 8th, and you can pre-order it right now. This is a fun, wisdom-packed episode, so stay tuned for Babs. There's lots of Cherry Bombe news to share with you, so let's go through some of it. Jubilee is coming up. It's our biggest event of the year. It's an amazing day of connection and community, and it is taking place in New York City on April 12th. You can purchase a ticket. You can apply to be a volunteer, or you can apply to be a Jubilee Scholar, which comes with a free ticket. If you are a Cherry Bombe member, be sure to use your Cherry Bombe discount when you buy your ticket. Also, if you're a member, you can apply for a Bombe Squad booth and the chance to showcase your brand at a very special rate. You can find all the details on cherrybombe.com. And members, you can find your exclusive info in your inbox. Now, let's check in with today's guest. Babs Costello, welcome to Radio Cherry Bombe.
Oh, thank you so much, Kerry. It's great to be here.
It is such an honor. I think I told you the story already, but you were down in the concourse here at Rockefeller Center, and I was walking behind you, and I so desperately wanted to tap you on the shoulder.
Oh, my word.
And just say, oh, Babs, I want you to come on the show so badly, but I left you alone.
Well, here I am, and I wish you had done that. I can't tell you the number of people, though, that do come up to me, and it's kind of new for me. And it sometimes blows me away. And then I think I'm really honored that they feel like I'm part of the family.
Well, you are such a comforting human being. I mean, just your presence on social media and your greeting to everyone. I could listen to you say that on repeat 100 times. So if you're having a bad day, folks.
Tell my husband.
I will, Mr. Babs.
Right.
Babs, I want to start with something that you said in your birthday video that was so moving.
Yeah.
You said that when you were in your 50s, you thought your best years were behind you. Why did you think that?
Yeah, we have a youthful culture, right? Everything is directed to youth. Or if you're older, you're trying to look younger, right? I mean, you're buying all the creams and the lotion, which I use, by the way, because there's nothing wrong with beautiful skin. So I think that by the time you reach 50, you're at the half-century mark, and you do feel like, wow, I'm not going to probably live to 100. I'm not sure I want to live to 100. So like half your days are gone, and the next half of that century presents itself. So I think we're almost programmed to believe that after 50, all the downhill stuff, like, birthday parties for 40, down the hill, like 40s, like babies, right? And now you look at 50-year-olds and they look like, oh my gosh, they could be in their 30s. So I always say, like, I'm 76, but the 70s are the new 50s.
I absolutely love that. So you just told me what your mindset is today, basically. The world met you back in April 2020 during the pandemic. You dropped your first video at the urging of your daughter. Yes. And you hadn't engaged at all with social media up until that point, not even Facebook.
I know. I was kind of weird.
It's so shocking to me because I do feel like most of the world was on Facebook.
On Facebook. Yeah. I'm a busy person. I'm high energy and I'm very busy. And so I just got an iPad 6 months ago. My phone, that does everything. It takes my pictures, it makes my videos and all that business. So I have to say, for whatever reason, I figured I'll talk to people. I'll pick up a phone or I'll go visit them or whatever. I really, truly never was on Facebook before. No social media, which I think is like, not the typical, like you said, for that period. But it's true. And so TikTok, which I went on because of my daughter's urging, because it was like a lot of pushback. Like, no, I'm not doing this. No. And I have granddaughters who are dancing, and I love to dance, but not on TikTok. And so she said, you're not going to dance. So I did put my foot in social media, And here I am today.
It's amazing that all that happened just because you were trying to make your daughter happy.
Yeah, because I just wanted to okay, give her what she wanted, that one answer, and figure one and done.
So you said you were very busy. You were retired at that point.
Yeah.
What were you doing?
So I was 71, and I had retired. I had the preschool for 25 years.
The growing tree.
The growing tree, yes. A very special place. Actually, I was subbing. I'm kind of a born teacher. So I was subbing in local school districts. I was going, what do retired ladies do that are in their 70s? They go for lunch. They go to water aerobics. They watch their grandkids. And that was kind of my life. Also, I was involved in a Bible study at church, and I loved this group of women that I would see every Tuesday, and I taught CCD. And so my days were filled, honest to goodness. So it wasn't like I was, eating bonbons, watching reruns of soap operas.
Do you think that whole idea and concept of retirement is maybe bad?
I mean, people retire maybe from a job or a career that they had, but then you can always segue into something else, because I think older people have a lot to offer. There's a lot of wisdom there. I don't want to be put on a shelf, and so I don't think anybody should, if they choose not to.
One of the biggest things we hear from folks in the Cherry Bombe community is they are so desperate for mentors.
Yeah.
And I wish there was just some kind of program. I mean, I guess we should probably start it, but
yeah.
I wish there was some kind of program that was just pairing more people because, like you said, there is so much wisdom and life's so confusing today.
Right. And I think sometimes, again, in our culture, when you said, did you think your best days were behind you 50? I think in our culture, too, at least it was, that older people have nothing to offer. Right? And they should go to the retirement home and play bridge. But if you choose, I think what's holding back a lot of older people too is needing a younger person to help them navigate this social media where they could share whatever expertise they have. Because I put my foot in the water and because of my daughter, if without her, there wouldn't be Brunch with Babs. There wouldn't be, Instagram and TikTok. So you need that younger person to kind of mentor you so you could mentor other people.
Let's talk about the preschool. You ran your own preschool for 25 years.
Right.
The Growing Tree.
Yeah.
You taught a lot of little ones.
I did.
What made you want to have your own school?
When Bill and I were first married, I taught middle school in Chicago, in Schaumburg. And then we were transferred to Virginia. We had two little ones at the time. And then when I moved to Virginia, I got a third. Aaron was born in Virginia, but I got involved in a church-based preschool, and I co-directed it with a friend of mine. That was kind of like my foray into early ed. And I think the idea of these young, budding, enthusiastic, innocent, wonder-filled age that 2, 3, and 4-year-old children are.
The cutest age. Oh, my God.
It was an honor to be involved with that. And so when I moved to Ridgefield, I had Elizabeth, number 4, and there were no programs for 2s. And, 2s, it is hard. I mean, what do? You put them in a room and they play and you have a little snack and all that business. But we actually went on field trips with 2-year-olds, with their moms, of course. So I started this little program called Growing Tree, only with 6 kids. And that grew and developed. And by the time I retired, I had a staff of 6 teachers. We had 48 children. The Growing Tree was just a special place. I don't know if you can reproduce it today. It was kind of like it took place at a special time in a special place where you can't go back, I don't think. But we had a very child-centered, experiential program filled with art and music and celebration and field trips. And we also included family. So I got to know all these families. I've been to weddings. I've been to graduation parties. They've been in touch with me over social media. Oh, Mrs. Costello, I am not surprised you're Brunch with Babs, That's a special place then, I think, if you retain that kind of connection.
So when you named it the Growing Tree, that was almost literal.
Yes.
It grew and grew and grew. And now there are branches.
Yeah. Oh,
everywhere.
my gosh. Kerry, that's beautiful.
You would have come up with that on your own.
I don't know. I'm glad you did.
When I read the title, I first thought of The Giving Tree.
Yes.
That book by Shel Silverstein.
That's right.
So I don't know if that influenced your title at all.
No.
Yeah.
Because then they cut it. Yeah.
Oh, right.
It's kind of sad.
That's true. People don't love that book as much as when I was a kid, right?
Yeah,
It's basically a stump at the end. Sorry, spoiler. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking back on all that time and all those children, what is your number one piece of advice regarding preschool-aged children?
Let them be kids. Protect childhood. Protect their innocence. Don't flood them with stuff. Even at that time, obviously, there were computers 20 years ago, but we would never allow a computer at the growing tree. They need just to be nurtured, to be social, to develop those skills and that confidence into being independent. And how do you do that? You don't do that behind a screen. So I would say, even at home, I'd say limit screen time. I think in the end, it'd be so much more beneficial. Like there's hidden benefits to that you don't realize for years. So yeah, it's just let them be children. Protect the wonder and innocence of childhood.
Do you think social media should be age-gated?
I think that's up to the parents, really. Mm-hmm. I think it's up to parents to protect that innocence of their children, really.
I was a fairly advanced teenager. I would have found a way to be on social media without my parents
I'm talking
knowing.
about like 3 and 4 year olds.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All my grandkids have phones, right? But now there's this program in high schools where they have little caddies. So when you go into your classroom, you hang your phone up in a caddy.
It's a growing movement across the country to get
wonderful.
Phones out of classrooms.
I spoke to a teacher in a big public school system in New York. And actually, he is one of the administrators. And he's been lobbying in Washington to do some controls over this. And he basically said, case in point, there was 10 minutes of downtime in a classroom where years ago, there'd be like, talking and moving. Not a pin could be heard drop because they were all silent on their phones.
That makes me so sad.
We need to do something. Yeah, it's that socialization, right?
Mm-hmm. And we've got this loneliness epidemic now.
Yes.
Like we're sitting next to each other and we're on our phones. And it's just so sad.
Yeah. I think it's going to change.
You shouldn't have phones in classrooms. I mean, I know some parents worry about their kids at school, but
yeah,
I can't imagine being a teacher and having that kind of disruption.
Well, that's why you still have your phone, but it's not at your desk. So you kind of hang it up like you do your coat. And then when you leave the class, you take your phone.
Oh, okay.
So if you have a message from your mom, don't take the bus, I'm picking you up, you get that message,
Versus when I was a kid, my mother didn't even know where, sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this, my mother had no idea where we were.
Yeah.
I grew up in New York City, and that was at a time when we didn't have a lot of TV stations, but they would broadcast every night on Channel 5. Do you know where your children are?
Yeah, I remember
that.
That public service announcement. Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? And people can't believe that was the case back then, but it was.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it was a different environment, right?
Yeah. We were free-range kids.
Yeah. Well, I used to be able, and I'm a lot older than you. When we went out, let's say, after dinner in the summer, whatever, we had to come home when the streetlights came on. I grew up in Chicago, right? And so you played on the street and you ran around and you were different. You could have been 4 blocks away from your home and just come home when the streetlights were on.
Yeah, that was the thing in Staten Island too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to you and your profession. I read that you studied English and education at Marquette University in Milwaukee. They're very proud of you. I read about you in the alum newsletter.
Did you really? You must have did a deep dive.
I did a little research.
Yeah.
So you studied English and education. What drew you to those two things?
Well, first of all, I love English. I like to write. I like to read. So that was kind of a normal path for me. I like to tell people what to do in a nice way. So, and also at that time, the nursing program was really popular and the education program was very popular. And there was also speech therapists and occupational therapists. But those were mostly the tracks that most women gravitated to. My personality and my strengths led me into education.
Mm-hmm. Some women weren't even encouraged to go to college.
No, in
back
fact,
then.
Because most
and that wasn't that long ago.
No, most women, not most, but some, got married right after high school, do you know? So yeah, and I was the first one in my family to go to college, by the way. My one cousin, Junior, Augustus, he's a year older than me, so he was the first one. Mm-hmm. And my grandparents had 22 grandchildren. One of my grandmother's 9 kids went to Loyola for a few years. Otherwise, nobody went to college. And then the grandkids now, most of the grandkids went on.
You grew up in Chicago. As you mentioned, your parents were of Italian and Lebanese descent. I'm curious what life at home was like when you were younger. Were you cooking and doing chores? I'm wondering when you started soaking up all this wisdom that you now share with us.
So from birth until like 3rd grade, we lived in Chicago in the city, 15 minutes from the Loop, from downtown, maybe closer. And my grandfather owned an apartment building. So the entire building was the family. Family to them was everything, do you know? So on the top level of the building were my grandparents. Then the next level were my mom and dad, my sister and I. And then the first level was a split. So the latest son or daughter who got married, that because there were them 2 units lived there. So I would go up to my grandmother's all the time. My mother worked at Sears at the time, so she would walk to Sears from where the apartment was. And
some of you might not know Sears. It was a big
Sears,
department store back in the day.
Sears was the store. They used to say, as Sears goes, the country goes.
And the Sears catalog, very big deal.
Oh my gosh, we waited for that thing. It was like, I don't know, 2,000 pages. But anyway, so I spent a lot of time with my grandmother upstairs. And my grandmother was an Italian immigrant, came to this country to marry my grandfather, arranged marriage. She couldn't read, but she raised 9 children, and she was one of the wisest women I've ever met.
And did she shoo you away? Because we hear a lot of stories, either women are encouraged when they're little to be in the kitchen with their moms or their grandmothers, or sometimes the moms and the grandmothers are like, get out of the kitchen.
Yeah. Well, I was invited in until I messed up. And then it was like, forget it. Go. They're Italians. They didn't have a lot of patience, at least in our family. And there was always a hustle and bustle and a lot of movement and Italian spoken a mile a minute. And I wish I had picked it up, but I didn't. So it was a very robust, energy-filled. The kitchen was the hub because food was everything.
So what was a typical dinner like? What were the traditional family dishes?
So if it were at my grandmother's, so Sunday was the day to go to grandma's. So now we moved. And now we've got all these cousins, aunts and uncles. And so what it would be like would be after Mass, we would go to grandma's. And of course, they're Italian, so we always went to the basement. But the basement was big, and it was very nice, actually, but not as nice as upstairs. But everything was covered in plastic.
I was going to say you probably weren't allowed to sit on the...
Well, yeah, and also covered in plastic. When you sat, you stuck, But my grandmother had a great big kitchen. And so everybody, we always started with a little antipasto. But then the prima dish was always pasta. But it wasn't ever the main course because I think having grown up in the Depression, now we could have meat. So then there was always the chicken, the potatoes. It was mostly chicken, I have to say, and potatoes and a beautiful salad. And then my grandmother's homemade biscotti. And then at about 4 o'clock, we'd all go and get hot dogs.
Because it was Chicago?
Yeah, it was Chicago. And everybody loved hot dogs. And it was like, okay, we ate at 1. It's now 4. What do you want? I'll have 2 everything. I just want mustard on mine. So my Uncle Bob would go to a hot dog stand and then bring home like 25 hot dogs.
Oh, Babs, that's so funny. Now, a hot dog is not a hot dog in Chicago. It is like a religion practically.
Yeah, it's sacrosanct.
What would you get on your hot dog?
Oh, I have to have everything. The sports peppers I kind of came to love. But it was the works. It was, the bright yellow mustard, the really neon green relish with the sweet onion, a nice pickle slice, and 2 tomato halves, like quarters, and then a little celery salt. And then the fries had to be wrapped with the hot dog. Otherwise, the grease, that wouldn't work. You have to have it all wrapped in one. That's how, back in the day.
And this might be the most controversial thing I'm going to ask you, but ketchup on hot dogs?
I'm from Chicago. That's like a mortal sin. However, my grandkids, they'll have ketchup. I'm like, your background, you're part of the family. We're Chicago lineage here. They're like, no, we love ketchup. I'm like, well, you're not going to make it in Chicago.
So speaking of all these meals, your next cookbook is called Every Day with Babs. It's your second cookbook, and it comes out this April 8th. Why did you want to focus on dinner for this book?
So, Kerry, the first cookbook that I wrote, which I never thought in a million years I was going to write a cookbook. Number 1, let's get that on the table
I heard
here.
a story. You told somebody about when the publisher just like cold emailed you or DM'd you or something. You thought they wanted you to write an autobiography.
You really?
And you wrote back. I should let you tell the story.
Yeah.
But you wrote back and you said, I haven't done that much with my life.
Yeah, thank you, but
pass.
no thank you. Yeah, my life's not that interesting. Then Liz is like, Mom, they want you to write a cookbook. Well, I don't want to do that either. But anyway, after a little, again, I've tried a lot of different things, but I've never been like, oh, yes, let me jump into it. Like you're going to do a podcast. I am? How does that work? But anyway, I'm here, right?
It's so funny. All these dreams you never even had.
I didn't have. I know. Life is really an adventure. And you don't know what's around the next bend unless you turn the corner, Mm-hmm. But anyway, so back to the food thing. Mm-hmm. So Celebrate with Babs. Again, it's like my background with preschool. Preschool is a celebration of life, right? And so Celebrate with Babs is a celebration of all the holidays that our family celebrates throughout the year. So it went by month. So now my online family, I would get messages saying, Babs, thank you so much. Now we have the holidays covered, but what do we do for every day? And, that's a perennial question. Every day. You answer it today, guess what? You got to answer it tomorrow. So they wanted a book every day. dinners. And I thought, we've got our months covered. Now we're going to do the days of the week. But you know how the days of the week, there's a different tempo. Like Monday feels vastly different than Friday or Saturday, for Pete's sake, right? The Everyday with Babs is a book of 101 family-friendly dinners that are arranged by the days of the week. So Monday is Get Your Sheet Together Monday, which is all sheet pan meals. So they're the simplest ones to make because Monday is the toughest day to get through. After the weekend, you're coming down, you're back to routine, and you're sometimes sleepwalking through the day, right? So those are the easiest. They're easy, they're delicious, and they're quick, right? So Monday is that way. Then Tuesday is 2 for Tuesday. A cook once, eat twice. So you do a little batch cooking. Wednesday is the one and only Wednesday. It's, you want to have a lot of cleanup. It's the middle of the week. Plus, families are busy. People are busy, right? You've got meetings. You've got kids to run around. So it's one pot, one skillet. Thursday, by the time Thursday comes around, you've depleted most of your food budget. The fridge is half empty. So they're more pantry staple meals. So it's Thrifty Thursday. Friday is Friday. Hey, yeah. It's like fun. It's movie night. It's game night. It's TV trays. It's pocket sandwiches or spicy sushi bake or lots of fun things, chicken and waffles. And then Saturday is low and slow cookers, because you're doing errands. You're going to games. You're out, right? And so you can throw things together in the morning and have a delicious dinner waiting for you when you return. And then Sunday is Sunday suppers, and those are more elevated. It's cheesy lasagna, eggplant parm, my cousin Jim's chicken cacciatore. They're more lovely, more dinner meals that are going to take a little bit more prep. But Kerry, they did a study, the Massachusetts General Hospital did a long-term study, like 20 years, on the benefits of family dinner. Or do family dinners make a difference? And after 20 years, they came to the conclusion that sitting down as a family without any distractions and making the meal and sitting to enjoy it, every family member benefited. They were healthier. They were more peaceful. They were emotionally better grounded. The kids achieved higher standards. There was lower depression or a lower abuse of negative behavior things, right? And that was only because you sat down as a family and had dinner. So we talk about that in the book and how important it is with our schedules today, too. You don't want anybody to feel guilty. But if there's only one night you can do this, choose a night. For us, it was Sunday. And that's why the Sunday chapter is a bit more elevated.
And I love the fun names. You're very big on tradition and celebration, like you said. And I think just having those fun names to go with it.
Yeah.
You also said, because you are so big on tradition, just start some traditions.
Yeah.
Because after 2 years, they take hold.
You're amazing, Kerry, just so you know. I'm so impressed.
I did my homework.
Yeah, you're smart too. Yes, that is not too late. People go like, well, I wasn't raised that way. We had no traditions. We didn't do anything. So start. You are the change. That's a quote somewhere that you want to become or something, right?
I love the 2-year thing because I feel like sometimes you think, oh, my family didn't do that. It's going to take a decade.
Yeah. No, 2 years.
Never too late. I think that's your...
Never too late.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be a motto, right?
That is one of your... I think you have several mottos, but that's definitely one of them. I also heard you have this amazing marinara recipe that you did not put in the first cookbook that you put in the second cookbook. Is this true?
Well, the first cookbook has the marinara sauce. However, no, the second cookbook... So there is this... How do you know? You work for the FBI. So my friend Ida Silvestri, who's passed on, but she was like a surrogate mother to me in Ridgefield. And she was more from the north of Italy, like north of Rome. That's how they divide, right, the country. And she was an amazing cook. And she had 72 tomato plants. She died when she was like 95. So when I met her, she was probably 80. And 72 plants in her backyard in Ridgefield.
She's the original tomato girl, huh?
Yeah, she's like, right. But anyway, so she would can all those tomatoes and then make this incredible sauce. It took her 2 days to make the sauce. In answer to your question, it's not in a cookbook because people are not going to take 2 days to make spaghetti sauce, right? But it was the gravy, which is with the meat and the sausage and the neck bones and all of that, right? And she'd marinate all of this meat overnight in white wine and garlic paste and basil and just beautifully covered and into the refrige. So everything just marinated. And then she would make her salsina. She would take tomato paste and then simmer that with oil and just let that simmer with tons of onion and garlic. And that was enough. So all of these pieces were done the night before. And then the following day, everything kind of came together and then simmered in her huge pot that she had brought from Italy with the spoon that was probably 3 feet for several hours.
Oh,
And then all of that was canned. She canned her tomato sauce. I learned how to can without using the hot water bath. And
I'm still here to tell the tale.
Yeah, and I'm still here. That's right. That's right.
That is amazing. So you haven't published that recipe anywhere?
No, I have to tell you this, though. When Ida would make her sauce, I went over there once. Ida, stop before you throw that in. We're measuring. Stop. And so I should have just videotaped her, but there I was with a pencil and paper measuring everything.
Sure. We would run that in the heartbeat. I think we ran a recipe from Dominique Crenn once, the famous chef out in San Francisco, that had an aquarium pump.
Wow.
As a recipe, as one of the ingredients.
Yeah. You needed an aquarium pump.
Yeah. You're not doing that kind of food.
No.
So in addition to the book, your other big project has been renovating the basket house.
Right.
Tell us what the basket house is.
So every time I go to my daughter's, I had to cross this 1-lane bridge. You had to kind of wait. My car went over, your car go over. And it was an adorable house that sat right by the bridge, right on this river. And I'd always admire it. So lo and behold, Mr. Babs and I were in Charleston, away for like a few days. And I get a call from Liz, and she said, Mom, you won't believe this, but that house is on the market. And I'm like, what house? The house. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So she said, I have an appointment to go see it. So lo and behold, after.
Is this the same daughter who got you on TikTok?
Oh, yeah, she's my dotager. So lo and behold, we bought the house.
I mean, the Kardashians have a momager. You have
I have a dotager. Yeah. See, I'm looking back. It's the young ones. I told you need the mentor, right? So anyway, it is an 1830s. It was originally a blacksmith shop. And one of the rooms, the biggest room, had a brick floor, which is probably where the horses came in. Because if you look at the front of the house, there's hinges on the wall, and there's a seam between the windows. That must have been where the barn door opened to let the horses in, right? Then in 1850, it became a basket shop. So it's on the river, and they probably soaked the reeds and then wove the baskets and then sold them in this shop. In the later 1800s, then it became a home, and many artists owned the house before us. So a lot of very creative people have lived there. We bought the house from a retired French diplomat. However, it needed a lot of repair.
As we all know, everyone who watches your TikToks and your Instagram reels.
Right. Mm-hmm. So because we were in a floodplain, so we needed to raise the house 2 feet.
Oh, wow. That's
when we raised the house 2 feet, we looked, and I'm like, what is that? There was the brick floor of the family room that was still on the ground. There was nothing under it. It literally was like laid in, there must have been some cement or something, but it was literally on the soil. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how did they walk in that room during the winter? Can you imagine this winter?
No heated floors.
No heated floors.
In that house, yeah. So have you ever renovated a house before?
No, you know what? We've never.
This is a big undertaking.
It's a big undertaking. Yeah. But we're well on our way, and we're going to share a lot about it very shortly.
You've only put out little bits of it. I noticed that. So I was wondering if we have
the reveal when it's just so pristine. So I did a walkthrough and showing everyone what it was like. Okay. It was charming. And it still is. We have kept that charm, and we've kept the feel of some of the elements of the 1830s, 1850s.
I love the one floor you revealed, the kind of checkerboard tile.
Oh, yes. Did you love that?
That's beautiful.
Isn't that so pretty? Yes. So a lot of those elements.
You said something about a pink pantry. I'm excited for that reveal.
Yeah. Dead salmon is the color.
Wait, dead salmon? No, is that the actual color?
It is.
On the paint can?
Yeah.
You need to talk to them, and they need to rename it Babs Pink or something.
Yeah. It doesn't sound too inviting, does it?
Babs showed up in the most fabulous pink coat, by the way. She was so cherry bomb without even knowing she was being super cherry bomb.
It doesn't look like dead salmon. I mean, the dead salmon is a beautiful color, but the name I know.
So is this going to be your full-time home?
It will, over time.
Okay.
We're kind of slowly going to be able to spend some time, maybe 3 days a week at first, and because we have to downsize again because we do own a townhouse 40 minutes away. And our kids are near the basket house. They're within 10 minutes. I have one in Ridgefield, one in, they're all in the area.
And how's Mr. Babs feeling about all of this?
He's such a good egg. He just goes along. It's fun for him to, he's like, how can I help? What can I do? He's got that Irish kind of disposition. I think we're a good match because I'm like hyper and like energized and it'll be 11 o'clock. I'm still doing something and Bill will be already asleep in his chair. But you know what? He really is excited about everything.
I love seeing him in the videos. He's a fun
really
presence
good
in all the videos. Looking at your life today, what has been the biggest adjustment for you?
Well, okay, for instance, I was in like a bathing suit shoot and I was on the billboard in Lower Manhattan, like I was at that time.
You and Martha Stewart, Sports Illustrated is next, Babs.
She looked great, didn't she?
Looked great.
Oh my gosh. I think all these new things that come my way that I'm like, I do get a little hesitant, right? And then I think the challenge is do it. Say yes. Leave your comfort zone. I think so many people, and I, for one, you get kind of comfy and trapped. And I think the challenge is leaving that comfort zone, taking the plunge, give it a try.
We kind of glossed over your entrepreneur years. I mean, you're still an entrepreneur now, but running your own preschool was very entrepreneurial. And you had that whole staff you talked about and all the children. Did running your own business then prepare you for some of what you're doing now?
I think for sure, because it's all communication, isn't it? So I had a wonderful rapport with the parents. I had a monthly newsletter. We did monthly
You're a Substack ahead of your time, Babs. Look at you.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, all of that. But don't you think in life, unbeknownst to you, what you're doing today leads to something that might not happen for 20 years. And at that point, you didn't see it. But looking back, you're like, wow, this is like a straight line. But I had no idea.
And no one called you an entrepreneur back then?
No, I was a director and teacher.
But you were an entrepreneur. Like today, you would call if you owned a nursery school today, you would call yourself an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I started a school, I guess. But I never thought of myself. I just thought of myself as a teacher who opened a school. And the rest is history.
You said that this has been the second act you weren't expecting. What advice do you have for those who think a second act is not in their cards?
I would say, first of all, you have to look at your financial situation, right? Because sometimes you can't get unstuck until you get that in order, right? But if you have a passion or a dream and, you're younger than 105, then you maybe slowly dabble in it. If you can't do 100%, give it a shot. So maybe weekends you do something. At night you do something. You begin small to share those things until maybe if it's the plan, it evolves into something that you can do full time. But don't close the door. There's no age limit on experiencing this life. I always say life is a great gift. So why don't you just keep on unwrapping it? Don't get stuck. Untie that next bow, unwrap that gift and see what awaits you. But you have to do it realistically. You can't leave your full-time job if that's paying your rent. But you can dabble, you can try, you can put your toe in.
I was also thinking, I don't know why this struck me. It was around New Year's, and I do love resolutions. I know a lot of people like poo-poo resolutions these days. But I was thinking, lean into the things that you loved when you were a kid.
Yeah.
You know, and you can do that now. And I was just thinking, I loved books when I was a kid. I loved the library. I feel like the librarians, were my second
Your
parents.
best friends,
Yeah, exactly. And they were so nice to me. They would let me take out more books than you were supposed to take out. And I just don't feel like I read enough books these days.
Yeah.
So that was one of my big resolutions. And I set up a shared notes app with my siblings to share the books that we're all reading.
Oh, how fun.
I think that could be a little part of it. Think back to what you loved when you were a kid. I think of so many people who were really good artists when they were little kids and just stopped because,
and
for whatever
children
reason.
show those interests early, right? I have a little grandson who is an incredible artist. He can draw. I can't draw as well as my 6-year-old. And he was just now enrolled in an art school, our program, and he's loving it. So I think that's so true.
Yeah, tap into that joy.
It's kind of like going back to how you were wired, kind of. What's natural to you.
Mm-hmm. I love when you share what you call a slice of peace. That is one of my favorite Babisms. The past few weeks have been really hard on a lot of folks.
What a nightmare.
I know. And I was curious if you have a slice of peace you can offer all of us right now.
I was thinking about this, and, it's like what your home is. Your home is your castle. Your home is a reflection of you. It's your history, right? It's where you were and who you are and where you're going. And it's those family photos. So it's all those things that once you enter, you're in the safe, peaceful castle. And now that's all taken away. And I think this whole terrible thing is, number one, I think it refocuses us too, because though you can't go back, obviously, because those things are gone. I think the most important thing is, and this has been kind of amazing, that most people have their loved ones. They're together with the people that they love most in the world. With that, they can create new memories. Sometimes these awful tragedies, all of a sudden, people are helping each other. You're seeing an outpouring of love and donations and neighbors helping neighbors. You heard that one story, I think it was James Wood. He was concerned about the 94-year-old man who had dementia, who lived down the hill from him, and how they went and make sure he was okay. So it's awful. I can't imagine in 100 years. But it does show, too, the resilience of people. And sometimes it brings out qualities that we didn't even know we had. And also readjusting that it's not your stuff, even though your stuff is so important, but it's the people that you love that are safe and sound and with you.
And also a reminder to know your neighbors.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I took from this, because I live in an apartment building in Brooklyn, and I realized there are a lot of new people I don't know.
Yeah.
And I should do something about that.
Yeah. Send them over a coffee cake.
Exactly. I do need to start baking too. That was one of my resolutions. Bake more.
Bake and read. Right?
Bake and read. Yeah. I wish I could do that all day long. Are you good at trusting your gut? Is it something you've had to learn over time, or were you born that way?
No, first of all, I think women have that sixth sense.
Intuition.
Yeah. And I think that, if they say the gut is the second brain, right?
I never heard that.
Oh, yeah. You know how sometimes something will happen, but you feel it in your tummy, right? You're kind of processing it here, but you're feeling it here, right? I definitely have that sense. And if I assess things, or it's just like emotional kind of thing, many times I'm kind of okay. Not spot on, but there was a connection for sure.
I would love to know some women you've looked up to over the years, maybe other culinary professionals or just folks out there who've mentored you from afar or near.
Well, certainly my mother and my grandmother, who made such an influence on me, and Ida. Julia Child, I used to watch her PBS show, and I was fortunate enough, we spent a couple of weeks in the south of France, and I visited her home. It's now a cooking school.
Mm-hmm. We have a story on it in the next issue. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's great.
McKenna. Did you meet McKenna?
We did. Mm-hmm. We spent some time with her and her husband and her daughter. And I got to kind of mosey around Julia Child's kitchen, which was pretty incredible. But
you're Julia Child for some people these days.
I am a little zany. I mean, no, she was a character, wasn't she?
She was very much a character.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun to watch her. So I hope I am that way.
All right, let's do a speed round. What beverage do you start the day with?
Okay, I have this mushroom drink. I know, it's a powder. I know, it sounds awful, but it's good. And it's chocolate, so it tastes like hot chocolate. So I heat water, and then I put a scoop of this OM. It's all kind of different like lion's tail and, different. Riki, is that one of them? I don't know. But there's lots of mushrooms. And you just stir it up, and it satiates me, and I think it's super healthy. I'm kind of into health. Because you know what? Because I'm busy.
We need you to live forever, Babs. I know you said you weren't sure if you want to live to 100, but we want you to live to 100 at
only
least.
If you're with me.
Okay, what's a favorite cookbook of yours?
Well, I lived in Virginia. So I got really involved with the Southern Living books. So I had probably 20 of the recipes for that year. It was like the encyclopedia. So I had 20 of those. I was such into Southern living. And then when we moved, we had to downsize, and Bill took them all to the thrift shop.
Oh.
So those all went. And also years ago, when I got married, everybody's Bible was the Better Homes and Garden play, the gingham red and white.
Well, hopefully your old Southern Living cookbooks found a good home in those thrift shops.
I'm sure.
What is always in your fridge?
Well, butter, cream, all that good stuff, right? And also salad stuff, enough to make a salad. So if I get home or during the middle of the day, fresh veggies, carrots, peppers, romaine, or whatever, but salad.
What's your most used kitchen tool or implement?
I love my kitchen shears because they do like everything. And my scale. I could bake without my scale.
You like to weigh versus measure out?
110%. When I'm trying to convert people to the scale system, I'll say, okay, put your flour in that cup. Now, Let's see what it calls for. Let's see what you have. And you could see they may had 2 more tablespoons. Well, guess what? That could affect that recipe, right? So anyway,
that is a great test to do to show people to realize why you
there is
should
a
weigh.
difference, right? If you're heavy-handed or you're too light, whatever.
What's your favorite snack food?
Maybe popcorn. I love popcorn.
Okay.
And nuts. Oh my gosh, like peanuts, those Virginia roasted nuts, those are great too.
What was your favorite food as a child?
I would say I've always been a pasta freak because my grandmother made homemade pasta and we always had the homemade sauce. So I'd say the pasta.
What are you streaming right now?
I don't watch a lot of TV.
You don't? Even with all these amazing TV shows now?
I do go to bed a little on the earlier side because I have a full day. What do you recommend? What are you streaming?
Oh, gosh. I just finished Rivals. Rivals was good. Little body, set in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
In the Cotswolds. It's all about media. Oh, Bad Sisters. Love Bad Sisters.
Really?
Have you been to Ireland?
I have.
It's set in Dublin.
Oh,
And
wow.
the
Okay.
women who star in it are so good. And the older sister actually created the show.
Oh, wow.
It's on Apple TV+.
Make a list for me.
Okay. I will.
I think my last streaming thing was 24. Do you remember that? And also John Adams. I love that series.
Oh,
you know John Adams? Well, you have to see that. You'll love it.
Okay. I'll add that to my list. Do you have a favorite food film?
Oh, Julia and Julia. I love that.
What's on your travel bucket list?
We've been to Ireland. My husband's Irish. We've been to Italy. I'm Italian. We've never been to Lebanon or Israel or Greece. So I would say when things settle down, I'd love to do like a Mediterranean thing and get those off our bucket list.
That would be beautiful. All right, last question. We ask everybody this. If you had to be trapped on a desert island with one food celebrity, who would it be and why?
So I was just on the Drew Barrymore show. Believe it or not, I was a food critic. And I was like, if anybody cooks for me, I love them. I think everyone is one. Your food is going to be good. Eric Ripert, who sat next to me. He's adorable. He's cute. He's lovely. And he's so talented. So I don't know, Eric, if you're listening, I would love you to be with me.
It's that accent gets
I know.
everybody every time.
Isn't it? It's so, and he's such a gentleman, really.
And he's great with fish. So if you're on this island,
Right.
you won't starve.
Yeah, I knew it. I made the right choice.
Babs, this has been so much fun getting to know
doll.
you. There's just something about you. And I think that's why.
Tell my kids that. I'm just kidding.
I think that's why everyone on social media loves you so much.
Well, you're a doll.
That's it for today's show. I would love for you to subscribe to Radio Cherry Bombe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave a rating and a review. Anyone you want to hear on an upcoming episode? Let me know. Our theme song is by the band Tra La La. Joseph Hazen is the studio engineer for Newsstand Studios. Our producers are Catherine Baker and Jenna Sadu, and our editorial coordinator is Sophie Kais. Thanks for listening, everybody. You're the bomb.